Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajana ku body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting. Obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Nga tize tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda. Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season yaba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting nga topic yonna gyandyagadde twogereko tujjako tujogera ku wano ku the Alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Good morning. A party divided still up to today as we are on the 5th day of August 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karahanga. Every Saturday, we are always here having a conversation with Uganda. And of course, we touch base on everything that is always happening, of course, in the country and the globe. We want to just really understand. In the country today, as I've started, a party is still divided. I'm not talking about any other party apart from the Forum for Democratic Change. Some people believe others got money, unscrupulous money, or what they've called dirty money from President Museveni. The report was tabled on the 28th of last month. And of course, it absolved those individuals. The individuals I'm talking about is president of that party, POA, that is Patrick Amuriatoboy, and also the Secretary General, that is Nandala Mafabi. They were absolved of their claims that were made by a gentleman that I'm hosting today, Dr. Kizza Besigye. Many people up to today are still wondering what is happening in that party. Who should we believe? Who is telling the truth? Who is politicking? Who is really lying at the end of the day? So today, we are touching base on that particular issue, but we also want to read a couple of your messages that were sent over our previous episode. Remember, some of you we're not really in agreement with what Dr. Besigye was saying, and some were saying that maybe it's time to see, some other political players, or, some people are lying to us. So we want to answer those particular questions. What does this mean for the FDC? Still in the same week, the Electoral Commission of Uganda, launched a roadmap for the elections of 2026. At such a time like this one, when you ask yourself, who is even going to take part in those, elections? All political parties, especially on the opposition, not all, but most of the political parties are what you may say in line with the ruling government. They are in the NRM umbrella or movement. We have UPC, we have Democratic Party. Now we are hearing cases of the FDC. What does 2026 look like? And the people who don't believe in elections, what is the way forward if or when Ugandans are no longer trusting the opposition, no longer knowing who to trust? What can we say? Please send in some of your comments in our comment sections. We are at Digitalk TV. That is on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Send in that message. You can also find us at The Alternative Uganda. That is still on Facebook, still on Twitter. I will be, hearing from you. The hashtag is #TheInterfaceShow. And of course, you can also look me up at Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Send me a direct message. I'll be able to get back to you. But without any more wastage of time, allow me to welcome retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's always a privilege to have you here.
Thank you, Edgar, and a very good morning to you and to all the viewers, wherever all of you are joining us from this morning. Glad to be here at the Digitalk, as always. I hope you've had a good week, in spite of all the challenges that we grapple with, all of us, on a daily basis. It's been a week that we, of course, witnessed the celebration of 30 years of the ruling monarch of Buganda, Ssaabasajja Kabaka, and maybe you will allow me to use this opportunity to add my tiny voice on the many voices that have congratulated and wished him the best as the 30 years of his reign were marked this week. I also understand that the government at Mengo has had some reshuffles with the new leaders coming in, whom I would also like to congratulate and wish well as they begin their term of office. Otherwise, of course, as usual, we've lost dear ones in the week, and I would like to, offer my heartfelt condolences to all those that have lost dear ones and that have had challenges with the patients and so on, which are not easy moments for that kind of situation. Otherwise, those who have also had good times in the week, celebrating birthdays and anniversaries of this and that and weddings, I also join you in thanking our Lord. So I wish you a good program today. and karibu.
All right, Doctor, you talked about anniversaries, and I'm remembering that there's a ministry called Phaneroo International Ministries. They're celebrating their 9th anniversary today. So let's celebrate them and, of course, wish them the best. Apostle Grace and your team, thank you for preaching the word of God. Doctor, you brought in an issue of Buganda. They celebrated 30 years on Monday, this particular week. And I just want to pose a question to you of, since 1993, Buganda has been here. And there have been some challenges that have been going on the political spectrum, but also Uganda as a general. Do you think Buganda has helped in, in solving the challenges, especially political, in Uganda today? Or if not, or if so, how and maybe how better can they contribute to the change that is needed in Uganda? I'm asking you this question really because they have been fundamental in change of government that we've had in this country over time, especially in helping President Museveni coming to power. Buganda was very essential. The war was fought here. So do you think Buganda has done enough in creating a better Uganda in 2023?
Well, first of all, you cannot place what is happening in Buganda and Uganda without a reference point. The reference point being that Buganda was a nation.
Yes.
Just like other nations that eventually were cobbled together to form Uganda.
Yes.
And frankly, our people, most people, are still anchored in those nations. In other words, the idea of Uganda, which was forced on us,
yes,
is still not the most anchoring factor for the citizens. People see themselves as Baganda first and the Ugandans next.
They still identify with the tribe.
Yes.
Then the country.
Yes. And so do others. You know, the Banyankole, if you ask, it says I'm a Munyankole, not I am a Ugandan, but you know, I am a Munyankole.
Yes.
And that is why the strong sentiment of nationality of Buganda was the reason the independence constitution created federal entities that had a lot of autonomous functions that they could carry out on their own, united by a government, a federal government that would perform certain functions, leaving most of the functions to the government of Buganda. That is the situation that was destroyed in 1966, and the situation that still exercises the minds of many people, both in Buganda and in the rest of the country, of how power can be devolved to these regional entities or the former nation states, so that they are able to do most of the things by themselves, including, for example, how they organize the Kingdom of Buganda. So the Kingdom of Buganda was restituted, but the people within Buganda have not do not have a framework that allows them to carry out the functions, because those functions are still carried out by the central government. And that's why things like Bioya Byanswa, that they were given just a name without content. They were given a name of a kingdom without content, because they are not able to carry out the functions that they are supposed to carry out. And that demand, that desire to reclaim the functions that the people of Buganda would hold is still a very major one. And in fact, at the celebration of the 30 years, in the speech of Ssaabasajja Kabaka, that was the central point. The demand for a federal system in which they would be able to carry out their functions fully as Buganda.
Yeah.
That is a matter that needs to be resolved. And if it is not resolved, it's a matter that will remain a contentious matter, controversial between the central government and the Buganda government, and increasingly even the other regions.
But that's the thing, Doctor. If you believe we should give a federal system, that means when we give a federal system, we're empowering these kingdoms to do what they're supposed to do. But we have more than 50 tribes in this country. Won't there be a bit of inequality?
I think you are again, misunderstanding what nations and tribes are. I said, and very advisedly, that Buganda was a nation. Nkole was a nation. Bunyoro was a nation. Yes. They were not tribes.
Yes, I get you. I got what you're saying.
They were not tribes. They were nations.
Yes.
In fact, there were many tribes within the nations. Buganda was not only of Baganda. There were other people. Even now, you've had actually one of the, I think, difficulties between Buganda government and the central government is that the central government has been trying to incite elements or tribes that were within Buganda nation to secede from Buganda kingdom. So these were nations, they were not tribes. And they were naturally arising nations. And they still, as I have pointed out, they still have a strong sentiment of their nations. So the question is whether you want to crush and end that sentiment and, people's feeling or not. And even the concept of giving federal should not arise because, it is people's choices. People have a right and they must have power to decide how they associate and how they live. It should not be somebody giving or refusing to give or taking away. And this is why the constitutional process that led to the promulgation of the 95 Constitution was very instructive because views were gathered from all the peoples of Uganda on all these questions. What people want. And in the case of a federal Buganda, the views gathered from within Buganda, 97% were for federal state. But even the views gathered from within Uganda, now as a whole, I think we're about 65. So, it's not me who says, I want a federal system for Buganda, for Uganda. No. It's the people of Uganda who said so. Under the Odoki Commission. The records are there for everybody to see. And they were very, very thorough. The sources of all who gave this information are in the records, and they are there for everybody to see. So that remains, I think, a central sticking point, not just for the Kingdom of Buganda, but for the whole country. You've heard, and this has been intensified by the family rule of Mr. Museveni, exclusion of others to the benefit of just a handful of people. What that has done has incited all regions to say we want our power now to exercise and our resources, because that's the whole idea. If you have a federal system, then it means resources remain in the states, and only for the functions that remain at the federal government, only those resources will be there.
Yes.
So, and it helps also to minimize the fight for the one place that controls all resources.
Doctor,
you've seen Kenya, for example, in their last constitution,
yes,
where they created some kind of a federal system.
Yeah, they do.
With what they call districts.
Yes.
It has minimized, the conflicts of people over their resources. People are able to plan and execute plans close to them in their districts. So I think...
Doctor, before you finish that point, the issue of resources is also very pertinent here. We have these nations you've called nations or former nations. All of them do not have the same amount of resources they are in. For example, Buganda will have more resources because we know that most of the taxes that are raised in this country are got from the central region. The central business district is here, the international airport is here, most of the big luxurious hotels are here, which may not be the case with some other regions or some other, nations. So where is the equity here?
So, all these are negotiable. First of all, the capital city, even in all places where there is a federal system, yes, the capital city is taken as an exception. That's why even in the United States, there is this city of Washington District of Columbia, D.C. That is taken differently from the states within which it evolved. So that is a different matter that can be addressed, including, of course, where you have states that indeed may be deprived of not just natural resources, but even human resource.
Yes.
Places like Karamoja now, which have been marginalized for a very long time,
yes,
which may not have human resource or even infrastructural development and so on. There can be mechanisms within which the federal government can support, and in a clear understanding of how that happens, can support entities that have those kinds of challenges, or even where there is a natural disaster. You know, you may be in your state, but there is a natural disaster that a state is incapable of handling, that requires the collective effort of all Ugandans. All those are matters which, in federal arrangements, are taken care of, and are known how they will be managed.
So it's easy to just tailor our federal system to the needs we have.
Absolutely,
as
absolutely.
But Doctor, you've not answered my question regarding the role of Buganda in fighting for what you call injustice, for what you've called family rule. Do you think they have done enough in 2023 to make sure to fight for the causes that you say are disturbing Uganda?
Well, what is enough is obviously debatable. But I think the vantage point that Buganda occupies in Uganda is one which has been both beneficial, of course, for Buganda, but also detrimental. as you've pointed out, there has been a lot of instability in Buganda most of the post-independence period, and that's why, many people from Buganda region are in the diaspora. In fact, part of the weakness that Buganda now suffers from is as a result of brain drain. People who have fled the country because of the instability and, violence that has been going on in Buganda for all these years. But having said that, I think that the people of Buganda have played their part in seeking to establish a just system in Uganda. As you have said, they were part of these wars aimed at establishing justice. It hasn't been achieved as yet. And I think that's why, the Kabaka was very forthright to say, the fight must continue. I think the Kabaka was very, very
Some
forthright.
people have a feeling
saying this says, his reign has promoted the role of the youth and made it central in fighting for what Buganda's future should be.
There's a sentiment that Buganda is comfortable after restoration, after they gave them back the kingdoms, and not just generally Buganda alone, but most of the kingdoms, they are comfortable. And how can you fight when you are comfortable, really?
I don't know whether you are serious about that assertion.
I've heard
because you see, kingdoms are not houses. Kingdoms are people. I don't know how you can say that the people in Buganda or the people of Buganda are comfortable.
Let me rephrase.
Are comfortable?
Let me rephrase. The leadership
Did you
of
see
Buganda is comfortable.
What do you mean the leadership of Buganda? You mean the Kabaka and his government?
Exactly.
But it is the same Kabaka, as I'm telling you, who only this week called on the people of Buganda not to relax, to fight for their rights and to make sure that Buganda's aspiration of a federal state in which they manage their affairs, they take charge of their issues, is at the foremost. So I frankly don't think that the leaders, and certainly not the people of Buganda, that they are comfortable. And the kingdom is not the leaders, but the people of Buganda.
Themselves.
That's why people have been fighting over what happened in 2020. When people were massacred here in
Central, in fact.
in Kampala, people who are still detained and tortured, picked by all these drones and so on. The gross violation of human rights that have taken place have been targeting Buganda because Buganda rejected them and demonstrated their rejection of the family rule of Museveni. And that's why he has turned around and brutalized the people of Buganda. So you cannot say in the same breath that they are comfortable. How can they be comfortable in torture chambers and in safe houses and in the drones in which they are being picked and they cannot be. That has nothing to do with comfort at all, and they have and continue to assert their will. So I think. As I have said,
Yes, Doctor.
Unless and until these fundamental questions are solved, which is really allowing people to live as they want. It's not to give, no, it's to recognize their demand their inherent demand of how they want to live and recognizing their freedom to do so and their right to do so. That's all.
Okay, Doctor, thank you. I think enough with the Buganda question. Let's delve into the discussion at the Forum for Democratic Change vis-a-vis Katonga. These days, you are in two factions, which is really saddening at a time like this, when the Electoral Commission has already started out rolling out the roadmap for 2026. Doctor, what is going on today after the report was tabled here and that was absolving the people you were accusing of getting money, that is Secretary General Nandala Mafabi and POA.
Have you read the report?
Yes, I've read.
Just show me where they absolve.
Okay, it does not directly.
No, just show me, because I've heard you repeating, which of course they absolved. Show me where this report absolved.
There was no evidence. There was no evidence.
Evidence was not even looked for. This is not.
You have also promised us the
evidence was not even looked for. No, there was no. You
want to say
this is a record.
The committee was impartial?
This is a record. The committee was hopelessly out of touch with its task. That's all. That's what this report says about them. That's all. Because all they did was to ask me what I know about this, to ask the other one what they know about this, and to record it.
It's like taking minutes.
Yes, it's a minutes. These are minutes of what we told them. That is all.
Yeah, because most you can see that.
Did they show you any of their own findings? Zero. So how can you say the report absolved or didn't? The report is trash. Absolute nonsense. It was a total waste of our time to appear before this committee. Because show me, I mean, anybody, what task did it have? And I think it started with the misunderstanding of their role. Because they, and how they were formed. Because to start with, they were formed by the executive that they were supposed to inquire into. And they were given a task that was different from the task they should have had. But maybe we shouldn't dwell much on the report, because I want to substantively respond to it on Monday. I am organizing to make a substantial response to this report. But asking about, FDC, Katonga, and how all these controversies come. I have said before, and I would like to simply repeat for emphasis, that the conditions for parties to function in this country don't exist. Parties are supposed to be democratic institutions that function in a free and democratic society. That is, so you cannot have parties function as democratic institutions in the kind of environment in which we have. And that is why eventually, unless the parties themselves adjust themselves to live in a hostile environment, they will die. It is just like, when organism, even ourselves, if you, I was telling people, the reason we are black is because of the hostile sun under which we live. We had to modify ourselves and create this pigment, which is called melanin, the black pigment, to protect us against the sun, which if we didn't have, we would die, because the sun rays would cause eventually cancer of our skins, which is why when Europeans come here, because they don't have, they have not lived here long enough, they have to put a shield, an artificial shield on themselves. So it's the same thing. If you are living in a hostile environment and you don't adapt yourself to survive under that environment, you die. Our parties have failed to adapt themselves to the hostile environment. And I have pointed out the characteristics over which that demand this adaptation from being just a democratic institutions. One is living in an environment where there are no freedoms. You know, where the controller of the society has all rights, can kill you, can lock you up, can torture you, can, where there is no rule of law. And, and therefore, where you live at the mercy of the one who holds power. You live at the mercy. Secondly, where that one who holds the country hostage holds all its wealth hostage and determines who gets anything. And the rule by the Museveni family over Uganda over the last nearly 40 years has totally captured the economy of Uganda and put it under their control, family control, and impoverished everybody else. Now, parties are supposed to arise from people who believe in them and to be supported by those who believe in them. Just like faith organizations, churches or mosques or what, the believers are the ones who support and maintain and progress their organizations. So if you have an impoverished society, it means they have no capacity to support a political organization. And that's why we are talking about now money in political organizations coming from that one who captured the country. So the reason he captures the economy is to use the resources, and resources of the country is to use the resources to control people. So you have organized, and on top of capturing the economy, the third thing is to commercialize politics. So anybody who wants to have a role in political work needs a lot of money. In order to be nominated, just nominated so that people can vote on you or not, you need 3 million shillings to go to parliament. In order to be nominated to be, I think, a president, I think the last time I heard it was still about 20 million. There was, of course, a debate if it was not COVID, I think an MP would be paying 10 and the presidential candidate was going to pay 100. Now, yet, you heard just this week, doctors clapping because they have allowed to give them 1 million on which to live. On which to hire a house, to buy food, to have transport, these are doctors. Teachers live on the fringes. These are the elites of the country. So the elites cannot go into politics because they can't afford. Even just to be nominated, to be talked about. So that means anybody going to participate in politics is going to be a hostage of who controls the money. Parties have not adapted themselves to live in that hostile environment where they can be tortured and terrorized to serve the will of the one who captured the country, where their members are incapable of supporting them, buying vehicles to move around the country, fuel, holding meetings, they are incapable. And so the controller up there who has the money is. So it's not surprising. I wouldn't want people to be surprised that therefore all these parties are going to be taken over unless they quickly adapt themselves. And of course new ones can form. Even if new ones form, if they don't adapt themselves to live in this kind of environment, they too would just be taken over immediately.
Sorry to say this, but Doctor, you've taken part in elections for at least 4 times, right? And you were on an FDC card. At the time you were not seeing these things, why do those statements come at a time like this after your political party has been mad with a lot of corruption scandals?
I get the sense that you've not been living in this country. They are not coming at a time like this. This I have been talking about since 2011. That was in fact part of the reason, a large part of the reason that I stepped down from leading FDC long before my term
had ended.
Yes. That was the conversation I had with my colleagues. That the way we are organized is not a way that will lead to the changes we want. That, we will go to the election and campaign and people vote for us and the one who captured the country goes away. I told them that will not happen. 2011. And that we needed to organize differently. And that is the birth of Katonga, which you are talking about. Katonga was about organizing differently to seek liberation. So parties, their traditional role is not liberation. It is contestation. It is electoral contestation for power. But when the environment I'm talking about does not allow that,
yes, sir,
then the main function should be towards liberation. When there is capture of the state, then you cannot talk about contestation, electoral contestation, freeing the state. It's not possible. Because you see, and this is the critical point that must be processed, digested by all Ugandans. Do we have a vote or we don't? Do we have a vote?
For now, someone can say no.
Yes, and if you
we do elections.
Yes, but do we have a vote? Because a vote, the franchisement, do we have, can we make decisions through those elections? Do we have power to make the decisions?
Many people don't believe that their vote counts.
We don't. And that is why, indeed, since independence, no leader has been voted out of office.
True.
That's the reason. We don't have a vote. So if we don't have a vote, and this, I hope we can have really intense interrogation of it, whether we have a vote or whether we don't. Because if we don't, then we cannot start saying, oh, the Electoral Commission has published a roadmap to where? Yes, so he's publishing a roadmap to where if we don't have a vote. Because the only reason he takes money home from our pockets, is to organize elections.
A lot of money.
Yes, is to organize elections. That's why he takes money from our pockets. But if we don't have a vote, what is he organizing? He's organizing nothing. And is therefore taking our money for absolute nothing. And a hell lot of money. I heard him saying he needs 1.3 trillion.
Yeah, that's why I told you it's a lot of money.
1.3 trillion just for it's a song. You know, that's what Ugandans should be interrogating. Why do you want to spend our 1.3 trillion shillings on nothing? Because if we don't have a vote, you're organizing nothing. So why are you spending 1.3 trillion? And why should any, right-thinking person be looking at that roadmap?
Doctor, just a minute.
A roadmap to nowhere. Doctor, why would any right-thinking person be looking at it?
The thing about Ugandan elections for the past few years is that the president does not change. Really, that is the constant. But you realize that every term there is a change of government of parliamentarians, at least 60 to 70%. The MPs that are already in parliament don't come back. One would say that can also say at least the electoral process may really work for some people.
So, if you want, we can have a discussion in layers. Let the first stage be a discussion of where power of state lies. Does the power of the Ugandan state lie in the parliament where those changes you say are happening? No. Which should be the supreme organ of the state? The supreme organ should be parliament. Why? Because power that belongs to the people is represented in parliament. The people's representation. In other words, all Ugandans are seated in parliament.
Exactly.
And all power belongs to those Ugandans. So all power, in a sense, belongs to parliament. Does it have the power?
No.
So that is the first thing. So the power is in the presidency. Okay?
Yes.
The presidency that cannot be changed by us. So you want us to waste time thinking that Byabakama, the 1.3 trillion Byabakama is going to spend is to change a Kasule for a Waswa without anything changing for us. Because since all those characters in the parliament have no power, they can have allowances, they can be on loudspeakers and speak, and that is where it ends.
Yes.
And if they sort of tend to go beyond what they are allowed to do, then soldiers will enter parliament and beat the hell out of them. That is, so we should organize elections for that and spend 1.3 trillion. You saw Mr. Museveni himself on cameras,
yes, sir,
saying that this Urukwago thinks he's a mayor, that he has power, that it is only this Bikufuru. We powered the water.
And he did it. He kept him out of office for a long time.
Yes.
Until he had to.
So, is that why we should spend 1.3 trillion electing the Rukwagos to put on Bikufuru? Is that a good reason we should spend our money? And he appoints his ministers. Now Kampala has 2 ministers doing nothing but taking money from the people of Kampala. So it is a time that Ugandans must think and act differently.
Okay.
So this, and the reason Byabakama comes out in 2023 to excite the country, or at least try to do so, about an election that's still 3 years away is precisely to hoodwink Ugandans and the ones especially whom they know are simply looking for jobs in the junta, regardless of what happens to the country, who are the elites that I have been quarreling with, you know?
Yes, sir.
So they want to incite them. You will see soon posters, MP to be 2026.
They're already there. They're already there. They've already started.
Councillor to be, you know, to be what? To do what? You know, what can they change? So the population of Uganda, the people of Uganda, and the reason, you know, I wake up and come to talk through these airwaves of Digitalk and others is to hopefully get our people thinking critically about how we get out of this entanglement, this capture by the family of Mr. Museveni, who has captured all the resources of Uganda, captured all the institutions of Uganda, captured all the means of even our communication, that if you want to communicate, you communicate through him. That in fact, what they decided this week was precisely the enforcement of that, to say that because government is the dominant entity in a tiny economy like Uganda, so to say that media houses will not get advertisements, advertising money, unless they are allowed by me, by UBC, is precisely that, controlling how we communicate. Because media houses are paid by advertisers.
Yes, and government is the biggest advertiser.
Is the biggest. So this is the whole thing. Ugandans must think, how do we get out of this stranglehold of the Museveni family? How do we get out? Okay. Sharu Biabakama and that roadmap, whatever they call it, is that which will free us. And if it won't, shouldn't we even chase anybody spending our time and money, MOP to be, councillor to be and do what? You know, and it touches on what you are talking about. I told you the reason a person who captures the state, the reason that person would be putting money in parties that are supposed to unseat that person is precisely to stop the leaderships of those parties mobilizing the population along a path that is potent to cause change, so that they can remain controlled by the Byabakama narrative. Elections. When we know that elections have never removed any leader in this country, and now it is even worse, a leader that has been in power for 40 years, that leader will organize an election and announce somebody else, is a total joke. So it's a critical moment for Uganda to discuss how we get out of the stranglehold of the Museveni family, which of course relies on those things I've talked about, relies on violence, relies on the capture of our wealth and using it to bribe leaders and to cause confusion amongst citizens that would otherwise be organizing to free themselves. 3, controlling the communication and dominating communication with their own propaganda. You see, you'll hear people say, these messages want to cause chaos. We shall not allow them to cause chaos. What brought Mr. Museveni to power? Was it elections or chaos? What he calls chaos. In fact, far greater chaos that left 500,000 people dead. So, if, that control of propaganda must be overcome. And that's why I am extremely happy with the initiatives like Digitalk. You see, because there are channels that don't rely on a lot of money, but can deliver information effectively to very many people. Because if you were to rely on a lot of money, you would be captured. Yes. That's how all these media houses are captured. And I would encourage Digitalk to remain using its humble resources, to become a part of a liberation effort. Must become part of a liberation effort. And I'm not oblivious of the sacrifices that Digitalk has already made. That it was invaded, its equipment captured, which has never come back, I understand, and journalists spend time in jail and so on. That's part of a necessary process of liberation.
Doctor, we take a break, but when we come back, you've mentioned in your submission that you left activities of the party, and because you never thought that would be the caravan that would effect change. But then, you leaving, you have influenced what happens in the political party. For example, you influenced the leadership of Patrick Amria Toboy.
Is influence a bad thing?
So then, that's what you're going to talk about after the break. You tell us more about that, and then when we come back, we still have that conversation. Isn't it really ironical if Doctor tells us that he stepped, but he still influences? And these people that are now the ones who are betraying the party, who are selling the party, in quotes, are your people. So aren't you getting a taste of your medicine, really? So, Doctor, let's take a break. When we come back, we start from there. And I'll also be reading some of your comments that you made on our social media platforms. I'll be reading them and projecting them for Doctor to see, and then we shall have a conversation from there. This is The Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Let's go for a break.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajja n'akubody shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Nga tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba-yambako yanda. Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season yaba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting nga topic yonna gyandyagadde twogereko tujjako tujogera ku the Alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
What at the church, though?
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. You're still watching the Interface Show. My name is Karuhanga Edgar Matthew, and this is Digitalk. TV. When we went for the break, I was still with Dr. Kizza Besigye, and I was still highlighting some of the issues happening in his former political party where he was president, and of course one of the vision bearers therein. And we were at the point where Doctor said that he left the political party and left the activities of the political party. And then that brings me to the question, Doctor, of you left the political party, but you kept on influencing the politics of that political party. To an extent that the President General, who is one in dispute, plus his Secretary General, are the people who you really supported in that time. So, Doctor, isn't this really a test of your own medicine? And isn't it ironical for you to say that you left the political activities and the political parties because you don't believe in their role in effecting change?
So, first of all, you are, I think, making a wrong presentation to suggest that I left the party. I didn't.
You left the activities.
I left the leadership. I didn't leave the activities. I just I just stepped from leading the party, stepped down from leading the party.
Because you never believed the political parties can effect the change we need.
No, because I thought that political parties and their main trajectory of contesting for power in elections would not be the way to do it. You see, even this morning I had a discussion with one of our colleagues who was having a lot of trouble processing what is going on. You see, it's like the political parties are vehicles. They are vehicles to deliver the occupants to some place they think is a better place than they are. You know, and that's why people associate, they chart routes in which they should pass to deliver a country that is of their own dreams, of their own thinking. But being vehicles, and there are different vehicles with different routes and so on. But if all of you vehicles, for example, are going to Arua, your destination is Arua. If we could construe that to mean the place where you have the freedom and the organization to transform the country, that's where it is. And you are all headed there using different routes. But along the path of all of you, you find a mighty obstacle like River Nile. Your vehicles can't cross, and you must come to terms with that. Those who don't come to terms will seek to drive through the Nile and they will drown. This is what I've been telling you. If you don't reimagine yourselves and how to get to your destination, you can make very fatal mistakes. And you think you can cross the Nile with your vehicle and you will drown. And maybe it will take some few drowning and then others will say, oh, this one.
The vehicle cannot pass on
our vehicles are not made to cross this kind of obstacle. And so what it will take then is for the occupants of these vehicles to think hard how to cross, to overcome the obstacle they have hit. And it will definitely, my sense is that it will take us stepping out of the vehicles from whichever points we were trying to cross, whether you were at Karuma, whether you were at Jinja, whether you were at Simba, wherever you are, to realize that our vehicles have hit an obstacle.
Yes, sir.
Let's now work together to either build a bridge, and it takes a lot of effort, resources of all of you together to construct a bridge across the Nile.
Yes.
Once you've constructed the bridge, then you are able to cross, to re-enter your vehicles and drive on to your destinations. Or you can even construct a ferry and put your vehicles on it, and the ferry safely takes you across the Nile. But the point I'm making here is that the obstacle is of such a nature. You know, if it has rained so much and Kampala is flooded, you may not need to construct a bridge. You may either have to wait a little and the floods subside and you continue each one in their vehicle. But this is a huge obstacle, and that's where the debate is. Some people think that it's just a flood, that they can navigate around it and continue in their vehicle.
We always have sentiments of people who say, that one has a failure. For us, we are new.
Yes. So, my sense, and we have to convince each other.
Yes, sir.
And that's where you say you have influence. We all have influence, and we all influence each other. That's the human nature of society. We are always influencing each other about all kinds of things. We are influencing each other. And if I have any influence at all, what I would like that influence to help me achieve is that understanding that there is a huge obstacle, that the country is captured. I want, first of all of us to appreciate that the country is captured. And once the country is captured, we don't have a say. We don't have a voice. We don't have a vote. Those go together. You don't have a voice, you don't have a vote. And we need to appreciate that. And therefore, step out of these vehicles, which we thought the votes would deliver to their destinations. Step out of the vehicles and first construct a bridge, or first construct a ferry to take us across the river. And that is what we are trying to do at Katonga. So this is not, Katonga is not a partisan station where only FDCs populate. Katonga is a shipyard. We are trying to create a ship in which our different vehicles can come and cross safely this obstacle that we face. And so at Katonga, we invite everybody to come and focus on building the bridge or the ferry. Whereas in the parties, there is still that debate, with some people saying, no, we actually don't need a bridge. We can navigate. This is not such a big problem. Yes, the elections are rigged. After all, there is nowhere in the world where you have problem-free elections, so we can navigate. We can navigate around the floods, and we shall get to our destination. There is that debate in some of the parties. And that's why you hear Mr. Museveni saying there are good DPs and bad DPs. If you talk about anything that goes away from what he has prepared, 2026 and his roadmap, you are bad. And he wants to destroy you. So, but you see, even where there are those voices, there are no sources of conflict. If you think so, continue. But don't interfere with us who are trying to build a bridge. Yes. For us, we are trying to build this bridge to cross the main obstacle or to remove the main obstacle. Those who don't feel so, continue organizing the way you are. Those who feel so, let them come and we go. And, you know, even where we have this obstacle, some people who are not helping in constructing the bridge can also help in other ways. You know, they may not help in, but they could help at least to show that this is a problem.
Please point out.
Yes, even just pointing out that there is a problem here is contributing to solving this problem. So, frankly, I don't think that Katonga is a basis of the problems we are talking about. In Naja, no. It's not a problem.
Exactly.
What is the problem is what I described earlier. The fact that if you have not adapted yourself, Naja, which has not adapted itself to how to participate in electoral contests without seeking money from the money bags of Museveni, will eventually become a property of Museveni. That's what we are talking about. That is what is benevolent.
There is a sentiment that, and I will quote, you micromanage individuals, and that
micromanage what?
You micromanaged. You want to micromanage people. That's what one of the people.
Micromanage who? Which people?
Yeah,
in my farm.
Those
where?
who do not agree you, especially
in the party.
In the party, that is the secretary.
But that would be absolute nonsense because
micromanage. And the other issue.
But how would I?
You've also talk about the money. You've also mentioned the money. Allow me finish this statement. When you talk about the money, also there is a citing that in the past you got money and you never disclosed sources. You first got $100,000 $200,000 and another $400,000 You never disclosed where you got this money. So in a case when the Secretary General, who is responsible to raise money for the party, refuses to disclose the source of this money, you disagree with it, yet you are the one who planted that seed in the political party, which is something that is practiced all over the world. Political parties do not talk about the sources of their money. So, Doctor, really?
You see, you are attracting me to discuss this report. And I've told you I will discuss this report on Monday.
Yes, sir.
And I will talk about all these things. I have told you, but I have told you at least since I was lucky and found you holding the report. I've told you that this is a report in which there is no finding of the committee. It's a record. There are minutes of what we told them. So even those stories of you raised $100,000, you raised $200,000, they are just assertions. They were just records of the people they interviewed. They never tried to make any finding, even on
what they said.
On what they say. Yes, they didn't. So this is why I think it's really absolutely worthless. It didn't add on into what we were doing, because these assertions have been the ones that have been crossing the very reason the National Council set up. Because in the National Council, I made a presentation and the Honorable Nandala made a presentation. So they have now recorded those those
for them, they just
presentations
say, "This is what was said."
and brought them back. So which makes it absolutely worthless.
Yes.
But I will address it and some of the issues, including some of the money which was given to me.
Yes, Doctor.
I will address them on Monday in a separate presser. But I think the bigger point, which would be the one we address ourselves to, is funding of political parties. I have told you that political parties are formed to advance political views of citizens or political beliefs of citizens. And to make those beliefs the ruling beliefs, to become the dominant beliefs and to take charge of government and implement them.
Yes.
Now, the promoters of those beliefs, you see, would have the primary responsibility of promoting their beliefs and maintaining them until they take charge of the country. I've told you that the promoters of those beliefs, who are citizens, have been totally impoverished by design of those who captured the country.
Yes, sir.
So, citizens have no capacity to sustain their beliefs, political or even religious. Citizens have no capacity to sustain their religious beliefs. That's why it is Mr. Museveni who buys vehicles for religious leaders. When somebody is appointed bishop, he comes with a vehicle to hand over the key of how the religious leader will move. Otherwise, the religious leader would not have the capacity to move and oversee the beliefs of his faith.
Yes.
So, religious leaders only function at the permission and facilitation of that one who captured the country. So will political believers. They will function with the facilitation of that one who captured the country. And so where does that leave the country? That's why I say that political organizations have a duty to interrogate this and reassess their mission. Is their mission going to be achieved just by participating in electoral processes of Byabakama? Is that how they are going to achieve their mission? And what is their mission? Is their mission just having a contestation of their ideas with the contestation of the NRM ideas? Are there NRM ideas? You know, these are debates that we must have. Is NRM a party? Is it a political party? Or it is the state itself?
These days we cannot really...
Yeah, precisely. So those are the questions the people of Uganda should interrogate, especially you, the young people, whose future depends on this. You know?
Yes, sir.
Because it is you to live in servitude, to live as slaves of Mr. Museveni, or to free yourselves. It is you. We are almost done. You know, our own generations are almost done. I have been telling you, I'm approaching 70, and there is an age limit in the Bible of 70. Our years are 70. Psalms 90. So, who is the state of Uganda? NRM. It's supposed to be NRM, of course, but it is eventually Mr. Museveni. Mr. Museveni and his family is sovereign. They have sovereign power. They are the sovereign. They own the state. So in such a situation, if we agree, and that is debatable, of course, some people think, no, people own Uganda. Do they? If we agree that, or if those who agree that actually the state is the family, they are sovereign, they have all power. So then what, in such a state, what is the mission of a political party? That must be discussed and internalized. What is the mission of a political party? To produce candidates, to contest in that sovereign state of Mr. Museveni? Is that the role of political parties? Which is obviously the role of political parties in democratic societies. Is this the role of, should that be the role of our political parties here? You know? Or we need a different mission for the political parties. And indeed, for all those institutions that are captured by this sovereign, including religious ones, including civil society organizations. It's not just political parties that are under capture. It is the whole state under capture.
Yes, Doctor.
And that is why it's even unfair that political actors are the only ones left to undertake the liberation of the state. They shouldn't.
The people are looking on.
The religious leaders, in fact, who should be the voices of the voiceless, should be the vanguard of liberation, you know? And in other countries, frankly, they have.
Yeah.
Even in Kenya,
even here,
the progress that has been achieved politically in Kenya. In Congo, the struggle that is going on, you know, Kabila would not have left if the religious leaders did not come to the front line and fight for justice. Religious leaders have a duty to advance justice. Their mission, in fact, except for those who are lost. But the religious leaders, as I understand it, of the main churches or the main faiths, whether it's Islamic faith, whether it's Christian faith, whether it's Judaism, the mission is justice, you know? And of course, focusing on God, who is also justice, who is, yes, who is justice, who is the truth, you know? So, the political parties have a test, and they must answer to that test.
Okay. Doctor, if we
those who answer wrongly,
yes, sir,
will perish.
Okay, if we agree that for now the political parties may not be the best tool to effect the change you want at a time like this, let's look at the legality of changing government. We know that the political parties are, as you've said, drivers or the cars or the political caravans through which you can effect change. But at a time like this where you're saying that...
When there is no rule of law, you cannot talk about legality.
No, but the Constitution still remains the sovereign law that rules
it may, but I'm telling you that whose Constitution? It's a Constitution of the sovereign.
For Uganda, Doctor.
So if there is no rule of law, you see, and which is what there is no rule of law. There is therefore no constitutionalism. The sovereign is the Constitution. What the sovereign decrees is what happens. If it's not in the constitution changes to that which the sovereign wants. And that's how power works. When the people get power, the law will change to reflect that
So should we just do away with the constitution, with the law?
But you see, so when Mr. Museveni and ourselves were fighting in Ruwero, was that provided for by the constitution?
No. But is that what we want to see?
No. So when he took over power
yes, sir.
in 1986, was he prosecuted for the treason he committed for 5 years?
He wasn't.
Why?
He has the power. He's the
Because a revolution had happened. Even in law, there is, I understand, a law philosopher called Kerosene.
The kerosene theory.
Who talked extensively about revolutionary change and what happens. So what is demanded of us to regain control over the country is a revolution.
At what cost?
Whatever cost, it is a revolution. If the people of Uganda are to regain control over the country, it will take revolutionary change. That's my assertion. And
you were in
if there is anybody that, as you were saying, I seek to influence, that is what I would influence them towards. Now, what the revolutionary change that Mr. Museveni and the National Resistance Army embodied was violent change, violent revolution. What radically different we espouse, we advocate, is non-violent revolution. And that is possible. Non-violent, so we are not calling on people to take up guns like Mr. Museveni did. But as I have told you, even what he did not lead to him being prosecuted. And that's why he is the least entitled to criticize anybody who seeks revolution because that was his path. He is disqualified. He is disqualified to criticize, oppose those who also seek revolution. In fact, I heard him say recently, I don't know whether it was a slip of his tongue, which does so quite often. I heard him say that what happened in Bukedia, see, these were the things that took us to the bush.
Yes. He said he was like watching a movie.
Precisely why a revolution is necessary, and if you ask me, inevitable. We must have a revolution to end the family sovereignty of the Musevenis. And it's legitimate. And you were saying it's illegal. It's not even illegal. It's provided for under Article 3 of our constitution. And Katonga Road is premised, or the ideas of Katonga Road are premised on Article 3 of our constitution, not on the political parties and organizations law. It is Article 3, liberation. When a country has been hijacked, when a constitution has been hijacked, as has been in our country, then the people of Uganda have a duty,
they call it
not just a right, but a duty, an obligation to do everything in their power to restore the people's sovereignty. And that is what Katonga Road is all about.
All right, Katonga Road is on that ideology, well and good. But at a time like this, when the Electoral Commission has started a roadmap, and they're saying, for us in 3 years from now, we are seeing elections, right? We are having a lot of challenges there in political parties, poverty, insecurity, and all that. But there is a roadmap, 2026, there is an election. Where does Katonga stand in the next 3 years?
So, Katonga has existed through elections. If, and I pray we don't continue to live under the Museveni junta till 2026, and I wake up every day to do everything that I can to make sure that I live in a free country at the earliest. But, you know, if 2026 was to come before we are free, we shall continue fighting. We shall continue fighting through it. What I would not invite anybody to do is to consider this Byabakama roadmap as a roadmap to freedom. It's definitely not. And it's not a Byabakama roadmap, it's a Museveni roadmap. He has prepared his killing ground, which is the election, where he kills all his opponents, and he's now trying to attract people to enter the killing ground. That's what he does all the time.
And unfortunately, our opposition all the time goes. All the time is always.
Yes, and that's why we are where we are. And this is why I have been saying that we must learn lessons. You know?
Yes, sir.
If we don't learn lessons, even all of us as a people, we shall perish, not just the parties. Even the people will perish, will become extinct, in fact. You know, this country will be taken over by foreigners, like other countries which were inhabited by equally and thinking people were taken over. The Americas had their own indigenous people. You go and look for them. They are not there. Australia, where, you know, Canada, they were indigenous people. They are no longer there. All the people who are there came from elsewhere. They have their own nationalities, Irish, Greeks, Spanish. You hear Spanish America, you know, all these. That's what will happen to us if we don't wake up early enough, and it's almost too late. If we don't wake up early enough and do what it takes to regain control over the country and to transform it in a manner that entrenches our own interests, it will be taken.
Okay.
So the humble duty that I have and I'm executing now is simply to make a rallying call, make a clarion call. Danger is here. Wake up.
Yes.
Let us confront it, you know, and get rid of it. So first of all, we need to identify the danger, and the danger is the capture of our country by the family of Mr. Museveni.
Okay.
Two,
Yes, sir.
what do we do? Do we prepare for the Byabakama roadmap? I say no. Let's not focus on the Byabakama diversions and the abuse of our resources in that trajectory.
Okay.
Let's rally together and simply say enough is enough. We shall not allow you even to spend the 1.3 trillion. We shall not allow you to spend it. We shall spend it somewhere else.
All right. Thank you so much, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. Now, a few of your messages that were shared with us in the past episode that we aired right here. So if you can, producer, I want you to just give us those messages subsequently as we finish up this discussion. We want to also look at, some messages there. This is at Kamugisha Julius. Besigye byayogedde byonna mazima ate bwe binagaana okwegatta opposition terijja Museveni ne NRM mu state power. Eric Byarugaba agamba, but doctor, you also always on that plane in the same way to beg. That is where your interests fall, including your wife and son. Isn't that hypocrisy, doctor? This is Moses Kazungu. He says, opposition in Uganda, omulimu gwammwe si kuwakanya wabula kuwabula government. Babeera mu parliament, bwe wali ku ludda oluvuganya waddamu kwekalakaasa bw'otyo n'akuba emmaali y'abanaku kati onyumiza ani gwe sitaani yennyini. Dr. Besigye. A message endala, the next message. That is Sam Miki agamba oyo yazimba mutima lwa ssente naye takyalina kyatugamba. Nagamba abo tetwagala. Peter Bitabo agamba, what's wrong with receiving money from Museveni and using the same money to defeat him? Did Nandala and Poor campaign for NRM after receiving the money? Byachitiase Andrew says, Kati Besigye afa kinensi bulijjo nga ye mukulembeze naye abadde tatuuka ku nnyingiza abadde tatu briefinga kunyingiza n'ensaasaanya. Producer, give us, I think, last messages. This is Ntabazi Herbert says, n'omanya ssente mu 2 n'osirika gwolowooza akayamba ani ndowooza ekyokusirika kyayamba Museveni. Long live doctor, that is Amos Ngabirwe. I'm going to last read Banyenzaki Nazario. But Mr. President, where is this leaving people like Sam Mugumya, who sacrificed their lives because of your promises? I think we shall. Okay, is there another message? Okay, but I wonder with the opposition, these are the very people who say, bwe baleeta sente aba NRM muzikwate muzirye naye mukole kyemumanyi ekyokukola. Now, if FDC leadership received the money and ate it, what's the problem? Mweddeko nammwe, which means you don't mean what you always preach. You are now making us to shun opposition. Lwakuba nammwe kati mufuuse bannanfuusi. Musa Kimbo wa Besigye talina kyatugamba. Amateeka g'okulonda gagamba mu kugulirira abalonzi. Singa wali wa mazima oleeta ssente ezo n'oziraga ensi yonna ng'ekizibiti okulonda kukomaawo kubanga obubbi bwali bumaze okweraga. Lastly, David Makanya. But Kebi, which political party can reveal its sources of funds? So where will the forensic audit get the information? You are now a deflated leader. Now, why did you dodge the meeting to express your dissatisfactions? Thank you so much, Producer Arnold, for those remarks. Doctor.
Well, thank you indeed for all those comments. First of all, and maybe most importantly, covering all those comments and maybe more, is that we are talking about the problems of the country, the economy of the country, the survival of the country.
Yes, sir.
Besigye is just one and an insignificant. There are 40 million Ugandans, more than 40 million Ugandans. Besigye is just an insignificant actor. I could be moving out of this Digitalk station and the bus runs over me. The question is, are there problems in the country? How will those problems get away? For example, of Museveni, of the problem, who want to divert? I told you he pays so much money for propaganda. You know, capturing all media houses and paying all kinds of people, and their main purpose is first to divert people from the real problem and create other debates. So they want Besigye to be a matter of debate. Forget about me. Talk about the problem of capture of the economy. Is the economy working for you or for the whole country? Can you finish your education and you apply for a job and get it on merit? Are your taxes, and we pay huge amounts of taxes on whatever we spend, are they providing the services that you deserve and need? Those are the questions. If they are not, why not? You know? Yes, you saw recently Mr. Museveni going, I believe it was as usual, to beg.
Someone commented on that same issue of you saying that he wants to beg.
Yes, I'm sure he was going to beg the Russians and whatever. But that's what he said even in his own writings, that he was asking them to come and help to solve his problems. But is it all right that he goes with his son-in-law, with his son, with his daughter, with that, and their wives, and that is the kind of image of you and your country that you would want? Is this so? The point I'm making is,
yes, sir,
there is a huge problem that must be solved. Whether Besigye is alive or dead, there is a huge problem. The question is, how will that huge problem, what is the problem and how will it go away? And I have said the problem is because we have a family that has captured the state of Uganda. You can challenge that and we talk about it without talking about who is saying so.
So don't attack the person, attack the argument.
Precisely. So the reason I am bringing this out is to show you that all those voices are voices of Museveni. Not ordinary, but people whom they pay to go and divert people from the real problem. The fact that most of our young people cannot even have a meal. They cannot even eat. That most of our children in schools are getting out of school because there is nothing in the schools. That we have a country that pays 10,000 for the education of a child for a year. That we build knowledge in our children with 10,000 shillings a year. And indeed the result are people with empty heads that are then hired.
Doctor, just summarize on that issue because I want us to speak in the last 10 minutes to just talk about
so
what is happening in Nigeria.
Opposition should not be, in Uganda there is no opposition under government, as I have said.
Yes, you have
there was somebody who was saying opposition should be advising government. All that is absolute nonsense. And yes, sacrifices are made to free a country. Somebody was talking about where does the problems, for example, in FDC and so on, leave people like Mugumya who have been in jail for years and years and suffered.
There are many who have even passed on. So.
This struggle we are in is not, FDC is one of the latest entrants in the struggle. I told you at the beginning of the program that the capture and creation of Ugandan states happened 130 years ago when the British came and captured all our states, the states that were here, and created them. We didn't create Uganda, created them into a state they wanted. In fact, at some stage, they gave away part of our land to Kenya. So, people have been fighting since then. 130 years ago, people have been fighting to regain their freedom.
Yes, sir.
So the Mugumyas and ourselves and so on are very late entrants into that struggle. Many people have died. We are still alive. Mugumya is still alive, I'm still alive. Many people, even those in jails, they are much better off than those who died. The question is that if we don't do our utmost, then those who die and those who suffer, suffer in vain. And that's why I will continue doing whatever I can to make sure that those who have suffered and died do not die in vain.
Okay, Doctor. Doctor,
No, there was somebody who was saying that we told people to get NRM money, eat it and do the needful. People must separate getting, and even Museveni money which he sends through all these Namiaros and so on, they can eat it. But if you are a political actor and Museveni gives you money, he doesn't give you money for there is no free lunch. So even the parties, he wants them to do certain things. And I've told you the two main things he wants them to do. First, to make sure that there is no activism, that people just prepare for elections. Two, to make sure that people don't unite, that all parties are rivaling each other. That's why he pays parties. Yes, parties can eat the money, clean their faces, and fight him. And that's what we would be happy to see in FDC. If they got that money and said, by the way, we have got this money, let's eat it and fight even harder. This discussion would not arise. The discussion arises when people get money and are not informing others that there is this money which we can use to fight him. If it is not being used to fight him, it is being used to fight us. And that's why there is this controversy. But you go ahead and
okay.
I think you wanted to introduce.
Let's just go to Niger in these last 10 minutes. President Mohamed Bazoum was, there's a coup that was set up against him. Today, I think it's President Tichina, who's...
Yes, Abdurrahman.
Chiana.
Chiana.
So it depends. I hope we've pronounced it well. This gentleman is now the one in power, but the rhetoric is, this has been happening around that area where military is taking over power. And we're not talking about 1970, 1980, where this was a common phenomenon. It is 2023, and we're seeing this happening. Doctor, what does this speak of Africa today?
Well, a failed leadership, frankly. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is a failed leadership. And it's all over. And it's so, sad that after so many years we're just moving in one, circle. Just this week I had our own person here, Mr. Museveni, talking about how we cannot, as Africans, continue selling raw materials Sometimes it's so annoying, This is somebody who has been in charge for 4 decades, Uganda has been free from colonial rule for 60 years, just 60 years. 2/3 of that time, he has been directly and overwhelmingly in charge. As I have said, all power has been with him. And he's still the one exporting raw material. And he's not ashamed of himself. He goes around with his cap, hat, people should add value. So policies, you must have policies. In a presidential system, it's not a parliamentary system, it's a presidential system. You are the chief executive, the head of state. The buck stops with you. You cannot blame others. You are in charge of everybody else. The failures of all people below you are your failure.
We don't expect lamentations from
No, absolutely not. But you find these ministers are hopeless. If they are hopeless, they are under your charge. You appointed them, you have power to sack them, you have, so why, what are you telling us? And that is his game. He has spent 40 years blaming everybody else, not knowing that he is actually the problem because he is the head of all this mess. So that is the same across most of Africa. Unfortunately, we have had the misfortune of having, terrible, terrible people as leaders. But you see, the problem is not just the leaders. And I have had many people promoting the idea that we should identify and focus on having leaders with integrity, who are patriotic, who think about their country, that, we should look for those kinds of leaders who are, of course, rare, but we should look for them as a solution. They are not a solution because, first of all, there is absolutely no way you will tell who is going to be a terrible leader. When we followed this, Mr. Museveni, we were convinced he was a good person. He was saying all the right things, castigating, like he does even now, castigating corruption, castigating tribalism, castigating sectarianism, castigating, and talking about all these things of transformation and not selling raw materials. That's what he was saying half a century ago.
As you summarized, Dr.
Yes. So, but the point I'm making is that it is not just the leader to rely on to have good government and democratic government. The guarantors of good governance must be the population itself. And so that's why every effort must be made across Africa to empower citizens to become active and to demand of their leaders the best. If citizens are docile like they are here, then even when they actually get a good leader, he will be corrupted and become useless and they have nothing they can do. Or even when you have had a good leader, a bad one can come next time and reverse everything a good leader had done. So the solution is empowerment of citizens to actively and continuously check their leaders and ensure that the right leaders are in office.
All right, Doctor, just your parting shots.
Well, tough times ahead, and frankly, I hope that whoever gets this message of liberation, of active participation of citizens, not relying on being delivered by some messiahs, that all of us have a duty If you have got this message, pass it on. Pass it on to others so that we can have the critical mass of people that can change the country we call our home, and indeed it's our only home. I wish you all the best in the coming week, and may the good Lord continue to bless all of you.
All right. May God bless you too, Doctor. And we are going to be there on Monday on your presser to listen to some of what your side is, or what the side of your story is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for keeping it Digitalk TV from 10 a.m. up to now. It's been a pleasure and privilege having you on the show. Do not miss the Snap Talk show that is going to be happening in the evening at exactly 6 p.m. Do not miss Teddy Tenjo Naukera and the ladies as they delve more into that discussion. So please don't miss the Snap Talk show happening at exactly 6 p.m. today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's always a privilege to have you watching us on the Interface show. You can follow us on our social media platforms. We are at The Alternative Uganda, at Digitalk TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all other social media platforms. I am personally at Edgar Matthew Karuhanga, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those. I'm not on Instagram, but all those social media platforms. Thank you so much. We shall see you next Saturday, 10 a.m. That will be the Luganda version. Mr. Mukose Arnold Anthony will be right here. So from the entire Digitalk team, allow me to wish you a good afternoon and God bless Uganda.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.